That top one right there, yeah. The jump.
Oh, really? Gotcha. Okay.
30 people watching us online, so you're really under.
Almost like speaking at general conference, right? It's fine just like that. Perfect. Yeah, and then there's a remote for this, right? Outstanding. Okay, so today we're going to spend the next 45 minutes, because I was a little bit tardy, talking about the Viant Dam. Massive dam. I am so excited to go and see this. And you look at the picture and it's like, whatever, right? It is huge. And so, yeah, with that being said, October 9th, 1963, bad day. Number of bad days in the history of the world. And this just happened to be one of those bad days. Okay, Eric, I'm pushing the button. Which buttons do I?
You have to point it at the computer.
No. There we go. So, of course, this picture taken prior to October 9th, 1963. Got a happy little family walking across the crest of the dam. The dam was completed in 1959 by the Electrical Supply Division of Northeast Italy. It's a private company that was subcontracted by the government to come in and build this dam in the valley of the Viant. The main reason, of course, same reason we build dams in this country. They built it to provide hydroelectric power. They built it to reduce the risk of flooding. They reduced it to give them a place to go water skiing. That was Lake Powell. Sorry, never mind. They built it so that they could have a reliable supply of water for farming, agricultural means, etc., etc. So the same exact reasons that we've built pretty much every dam in this country, the Electrical Supply Division of Northeast Italy built this. And this is a big mega conglomerate. They own, in 1959, they owned the electrical rights to the entire northern section of Italy. They answer to nobody. In fact, the dam was designed, it's going to come up in a minute, we'll come back to that. When it was built in 1959, it was the tallest dam in the world at 860 feet high, and it's still one of the top 10 tallest dams in the world. And I know you're all thinking, well, Brother Skinner, we've been to a really tall dam ourselves, and it's right there. This is bigger. That's about, yes, Glen Canyon is 710 from the bottom of the river to the top of the dam. This is 860. So an extra Kimball Tower thrown in. The footbridge that goes across for the Viant is taller than the crest of Glen Canyon Dam. So it is a massive, massive concrete structure. Again, when it was built, it was the tallest in the world. By the time of the incident in question in 1963, it was the third tallest in the world, but it's still one of the tallest in the world today, and it is bigger than that. 90 feet wide, 76 feet thick at the base. It really has a unique structure because of the shape of the canyon. We look at Glen Canyon, and it's, except for the left side over there, it's pretty uniform. The right side's almost straight up and down. The canyon of the Viant is not like that. And then the dam increases the canyon width to 600 feet wide up at the top, and this really doesn't like me. So here's the shape of the dam. Really, really narrow at the bottom. Very nice, V-shaped valley, definitely carved by a river, no glaciation during the Pleistocene. When they built it, this is just such cool pictures. This is the footing for the right side of the dam, where they have chiseled, blasted back into the bedrock about 25 feet in the shape of the dam. And then the dam is poured right into that and extends across the valley to a similar chasm on the other side. So that's what's holding the dam in place, basically, is this. The dam was conceived and began being designed in the 1920s. But then bad things happened in parts of Europe, like Italy, like the Axis, and and this guy named Mussolini was around, and he was kind of a creep. And that big mega conglomerate that was the company that was kind of behind this did not want to build the dam because they figured as soon as we build it, they're going to take it away from us. The way it actually is supposed to happen is they build the dam, and then the government buys it from them, which is what did happen. So the dam was actually put off construction because of mostly political climate until following World War II. At which point in time it was put in pretty short order.
Those black lines are one of the.
Oh, those black lines are part of the problem. It only wants to go one direction. There we go. Now it's backing up. It's thinking about it. There we go. The black lines are bedding planes in a series of limestone with interbedded shales and dolomites, and some of these were really porous. And so it's pretty common practice in the footings of a dam from an engineering standpoint to grout those. You don't want to lose a lot of water into the subsurface. Here it wouldn't. They tried to do this at Teton, where they're building the dam into a series of interbedded ash flow tuffs and pumice stone and really porous volcanic crap. They pumped in excess of 1 million barrels of light cement grout into the footings and foundation of Teton. And after the dam failed, when they cored the foundation during the report to figure out who was to blame, none of that could be found. The rocks were so porous that it just drank all of that grout. And grout is basically just water with clay mixed into it. It's to make the rocks less permeable. So here they've just cemented off and grouted some of these bedding planes and fractures that are intersecting the wall of the dam to keep infiltration at a minimum. Because this is a concrete dam and not an earthen dam, they would never have had that same type of catastrophic failure. Teton was an earthen dam, and the hydrostatic pressure of the water trying to go around it in the porous rocks what blew the front of the dam off. All those engineering classes I teach coming back to, yeah. So that's interesting. It doesn't like that slide, maybe. It doesn't want to go backwards either. Where is Eric? We might just have to use the keyboard. Let's put this back up and back up. There we are. So we went through and talked about the really cool structures on the footings of the dam to keep everything in place. You can see how much wider it's getting as we go up towards the top versus the narrowness of the base and the very tight confines at the bottom of the canyon. Really, from an engineering standpoint, this canyon is perfect to put a dam in. It is narrow at this location. It widens upstream because of the slope of the bedrock and the type of geology encountered. You've got this really nice bottleneck here where we don't have to spend a huge amount of concrete like we did at Hoover Dam, going across a canyon that's several hundred feet wide, et cetera, et cetera. So again, prior to the event in question, because there's water behind the dam, you will never see that. It no longer looks like this, and it never will again unless somebody's got a whole lot of money and a bunch of big dump trucks like at Bingham, but there's no copper in that, so nobody's ever going to actually do that. Just prior to everything going catastrophically wrong, the reservoir had reached, or the impoundment had reached full capacity. And that's the way we talk about this. Geologists, I know you want to call it a reservoir, but in engineering circles, we like to call it an impoundment because other people don't know what that means. And it makes us look really intelligent. Okay, so that's the impoundment. The impoundment holds 168,715,000 cubic meters of water. And it wasn't even clear full yet. It was about 95% capacity when the catastrophic failure happened because they had been trying to lower the water level prior to this actually happening. Now, because you don't remember Geology 111, we're going to take about 5 minutes and we're going to review. Okay, there are numerous different categories of mass wasting events. You can have a flow where the material that's in question has become so saturated with water that it behaves like a viscous fluid, mud flows, earth flows, debris flows, etc. You can have a fall. We're not going to talk about falls because since we're doing this little brief tutorial on mass wasting, I had to put in my favorite rock fall of all time, in which nobody got killed except for one old person. And that's funny because, well, you'll see in a minute. And I'm not being mean. It's just funny in a minute. And then we have slides. And slides are a very specific type of mass wasting event where we have a well-defined slippage plane. It's no different than you going to Carl's Jr. or McDonald's or Seven Peaks and sliding down the slide. There's a well-defined slippage plane. Anybody ever try to slide down the Tinnick quartzite up in the kitchen? Doesn't work very well. There's not a well-defined slippage plane. So we have to have this slippage plane. It could be a foliation in a metamorphic system of rocks. It could be a bedding plane. It could be a fracture or a joint. So there's a number of different weaknesses that we could have. And here we're talking about some bedding planes is what caused the mass wasting event to occur here in Italy. We start off usually with one massive piece, and that's exactly what happened in 1963 at the Viant. It was one massive piece, and we'll give you some information or data that supports that claim that the whole thing started as one of the most massive landslides to occur on the history of the planet. There's several that are bigger. Rock type, orientation, water content, so important. And that's where we really enter the picture. If the dam wouldn't have been built, this wouldn't have happened. It really is our fault. Not us as the people in this room, well, except for maybe John. But us, yes, he did. Us as people who live on the planet, this is something that we did. We caused this to happen. And everything that we did, A, B, C, D, and E, led to October 9th, 1963. From the day that they first designed it back in the 1920s all the way through, everything we did led to what was going to happen. Yeah, cool picture from nice little landslide up in Cedar Hills back in 2005 where we created the most expensive retaining wall in the state of Utah. Yeah, you gotta love that picture. So, a couple of good ones. We're just gonna give you some relative size. Okay. Also, Washington, 2014. The landslide begins because we've had 200% of normal rainfall in the previous 45 days. 200%. That's a lot. Got a nice steep hillside here. If you look off to the right, you can see some deforested areas on the hillside. Those are landslides that had occurred in decades previous. So if you're in an area that's had landslides, the chances that there's going to be another one go up incrementally. And if you're in an area that's already experienced a landslide, that area could fail again at any moment. It's already got the plane of weakness is already defined. 43 people dead and missing. This is the number we wanted to show you. 10 million cubic meters of material. 10 million. You know, how many Bingham Kennecott dump trucks, Jeff, would that take? More than a few. One thing that you will remember, hopefully, from chapter whatever it was in Geology 111 is mass wasting events are cemeteries, usually speaking. The Viant, not so. But the people a lot of the people here missing, they're still missing. You've got a debris field at the bottom that is 25, 35 feet thick, and even cadaver dogs cannot find the remains of some of those people who were lost. And so a lot of times when we look at big mass wasting events, they are not just a geological phenomenon, but they're also cemeteries, and this is one of those. Thistle isn't that way. And the Viant, thankfully, is not that way either. There's Thistle right there, our claim to fame, right? Yeah. 1983, very wet year. The Ankara Formation perched up there, kind of behind the Navajo, gets all soaking wet. We've got rapid snow melt in the spring of 1983. I could show you awesome pictures of Temple Square and the Provo Temple being flooded by, the creeks that are just overflowing their banks, etc. The rocks give way. If you're ever up here, there's a little it's kind of falling apart. It's really not there, but there's a little visitor center here on the side of the Highway 6 before you go through this massive road cut. And from there, you can see over on this side of the hill 5 or 6 small mass wasting events. I don't know. I don't have the pictures. I don't know if those existed prior to 1983 or if they've occurred afterwards, but it's just a really unstable layer of geology. And several of the units around there, like the Twin Creek, which is what the road cut goes through, also pretty unstable. There's a number of mass wasting events that occur every year in the road cut itself and occasionally block off the road. When this happened in 1983, it was the most expensive natural disaster to ever occur in the United States of America. Federal government came in and spent $400 million putting everything back together, helping the state build the world's largest, most ugly road cut, helping the Union Pacific Railroad adjust their right-of-way to go through this big mountain of Navajo sandstone, which is what we should have done too. In fact, Union Pacific asked. They said, hey, we've got the tunneling equipment out here already. We can put a set of tunnels through there for you guys too. And the state said, nope, we're good, we got it. Big road bed up here at the top that we continually have to modify because of all the Twin Creek mass wasting events that occur. They eventually had to come in and drain Thistle Lake, which of course no longer exists, because it would have eventually overtopped this jumble of earth down here at the bottom, 15 million. So now we've gotten bigger. We're at 15 million. Some people say it's as much as 20 million, but that's kind of debated. But anyway, 15 to 20 million cubic meters of material. It would have down cut through that. The lake would have catastrophically drained, wiped out that really good milkshake place in Spanish Fork, Reed's, I think it's called. And we had to save Reed's, and so that had to be taken care of, and that's why we did that. Yeah. This is a little bit before your time. The last one was before your time. What am I talking about? That is the Nevada Huascarán. It is in Peru. 1970, the small earthquake triggers a catastrophic failure. The rock and glaciers detach from the face of the Huascarán, move down gradient. The little village down here in the bottom of the valley is called Jungai, and it overtakes Jungai and buries it under a layer of landslide debris that's about 100 meters deep, 300 feet. And there's all sorts of missionary stories and stuff that go along with that about how the elders had dusted their feet because Jungai was unreceptive to the gospel, and there's all sorts of stories that go along with this. You cannot meet somebody from Peru who doesn't want to tell you those stories. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. Okay, this is not a landslide. This is not, but I just love this. Okay, yeah, that is. Old. Anybody from New Hampshire? Because I've made people cry with this before. That is Old Man of the Mountain in the great state of New Hampshire. I wish Mike was here. May 3rd, 2003. They were so fond of this particular rock formation, which does, with its very firm, protruding jaw, furrowed brow, looks a lot like Dr. Tom Morris, in my opinion. And none of you even realized that he just came in and sat down in the back, so that was totally for him. They were so keen on this. There's a visitors area down here at the bottom of the mountain that they made this their state quarter. Okay, what's the state quarter of Utah? Trilobite. It should be. What is it? Delicate Arch? Actually, it's not. Delicate Arch is its own quarter based upon the national parks they started doing after, because they ran out of states. So they started doing national parks and stuff like that. Colin, what was it? Or somebody back here had it. Yeah, it's Crossroads West, Promontory Point, where the Golden Spike was put in. It's not Temple Square or some of these other really cool things, blah, blah, blah. So think about what your state quarter is. How important is that to your state? Well, this is what they put down. Well, on May 3rd, 2003, this is not a landslide. This is a rock fall. The old man fell off of the mountain. And the coolest part about this is that the citizens of the great state of New Hampshire banded together, and they filed a petition with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. It had like 700,000 signatures, which I would imagine is everybody in the state of New Hampshire, to go out there and take all of the rocks from the bottom of the hill and put them back on the top of the hill and make it was a state quarter, for crying out loud, right? So you didn't act. Elmer's glue. All right, here's what we came to talk about. They actually, when they started, the first quarter they did after the states were done was White Mountain, New Hampshire. So New Hampshire got another quarter. Yeah, it was easier than fixing the old man. It really was. So see, when I said the old man died, I wasn't being mean to elderly people or something like that. So Dr. McBride's okay. All right. There's the dam right there. October 9th, 1963. What I want to do really quick, if this is possible, that's why Eric should have stayed, because for some reason I can't make that live. So we're going to take that right from there, and we're going to open up something better than that, like this. And we're going to go to this website, and we're going to click on this. Please have sound. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
One of the most horrifying disasters in Italian history, the flood, roared down from the Bayon Dam and decimated the valley. Best estimates put the toll at 1,800 dead and thousands of others injured. So devastating was the wall of water that roared down the valley of the River Piave that entire villages were wiped from the map as if they never existed.
He's not exaggerating that, by the way.
Animation shows how a landslide
This is high tech.
plummeted into the man-made lake behind the dam and sent a great wave over the barrier. Within 6 minutes, the waters had spread terror, death, and destruction. For hours, additional rock falls spread fears that the dam itself might let go. But third highest dam in the world. However, the dam held as people far down the valley fled their homes. More than 80% of the population of Languedoc died in the flood. There are few traces left of the once thriving villages. The road is a long one. Tirago, Rivalta, towns that are no more. Men cry unashamedly. 10,000 Italian troops are rushed to the scene to assist in rescue operations. But as one doctor said, it is a work of pity more than assistance. Villages have disappeared as if they never existed. There are so few survivors in some villages that identification of the dead is impossible. A common grave is their destiny.
375 families lost every single family member. So entire surnames just erased.
Arena of death. Some survivors were found alive after being buried as long as 60 hours. The United States rushed aid to the stricken area. Helicopters and bulldozers, portable hospitals and food, anything that could relieve the misery and suffering was put at the disposal of the Italian government. The heart of the world poured out to the suffering survivors. 1963 has been the year of natural calamities. Cyclones, hurricanes, eruptions, and earthquakes have taken a toll of nearly 30,000 lives in a period of less than a year. The tenacity of man as he faces reverses is a fruit of the human spirit. With prayers for their dead, the people of the Piave Valley have turned to rebuilding their homes and their lives.
I was alive when that was made. I probably saw it live in the theater.
You probably did. I often wonder if the people who played in the orchestra knew that they were recording music that was going to be used to talk about the deaths of, 2,000 people, et cetera, if it was all just pre-recorded stuff. Worst dam disaster in Europe ever to occur. It's debatable whether it's the worst dam disaster to ever occur up until this point in the world, most likely. There have been a couple since. There was one in India in the early 1970s that killed 30 or 40,000 people, and one in China in 1971 that killed an estimated 150,000 people. The original death toll, like he was talking about, was about 1,800. By the time everything was said and done, the death toll was around 2,600 people, putting it right at the same level as the Johnstown flood of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, back turn of the last century. So really, really quite the tragedy. There's the number. Remember the numbers we saw before? 80 million, 10 million, 250 million cubic meters of rock and debris slid down the side of Montauk and entered the reservoir right behind the dam. And we'll be at this location and see the dam. The dam still exists today. It survived the mass wasting event almost unscathed. In fact, it survived the mass wasting event totally unscathed. Damage to the dam only occurred during the resulting mega tsunami that was created by the landslide. So we'll be at this exact location. The dam is disused pretty much. Still generates hydroelectric power today. They put in a tunnel through the landslide. I don't know what the distance is back to where the reservoir is now, the impoundment. And water is drawn through that tunnel and drops through the dam to generate hydroelectric power. So still there, still somewhat in use. Longemeyer, the town that received most of the damage, rebuilt. And some of the pictures that we'll see, in a minute, will come from that location. So, Longarone. These are the towns that it was talking about, the area that was flooded. The river should be in the dark blue area. The light blue area is bad. Even water going upstream, the tsunami wipes out the town of San Martino. Most of the devastation caused down below, but again, the dam actually held. In hindsight, there's a number of things that we should have seen. There's a number of warning signs that were evident. At least today they're evident. But hindsight is always 2020, and I guess it's we'll talk about some of these things. We might shake our head and scratch your temple and say, what were they thinking? But it's really not fair to judge 1963 construction / technology with a 2017 view, especially when we're looking at hindsight. But one of the things I will point out is this little area right here, that is a landslide that occurred into the reservoir of about 800,000 cubic meters during construction of the dam. So you'd think somebody may have said, well, people did actually say this is a bad idea. When we were briefly talking before about what we have to have a mass wasting event, we need a slippage plane. If we don't have a slippage plane, we're not going to have a mass wasting event. Notice that the geology is inclined directly into the reservoir. It's the worst possible scenario. It's the exact same type of bedding plane orientation that we have if you go up Spanish Fork Canyon to the Thistle Slide. Everything points to the bottom of the canyon. So you've got the slippage plane oriented in the direction of maximum gravity. We can get Dr. Harris to come in and talk about mode 1, blah, 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 but we're not going to because that's no fun. All right. You have to remember this because there's going to be a quiz when we get to the Viant, and I'm going to ask you all of these questions. So you have to make, So things that maybe somebody might have seen. March 22nd, 1959, landslide at a dam about 15 miles away. Anybody who speaks Italian? Come on, your French can't pull that out? Pontesi Dam kills one person. The person was killed because the landslide again entered the reservoir, creating a small tsunami with a wave height of about 20 meters, and that killed this person. The dam at the Viant Valley is already under construction by March 22nd. Summer of 1960, minor slides in the construction area. Journalists report on these events were disciplined by the Italian government. Yeah, so, hey, there was a landslide today where they're building this dam, blah, blah, blah. We wrote that up in our newspaper, and you are going to jail, my friend. So there wasn't a lot of coverage outside. A lot of what we know today from these warning events comes from internal documents. November 4th, 1960, the landslide we just showed you a second ago. 800,000 meters landslide enters the central portion of the impoundment directly below the summit of the mountain. October of 61, 5 individual Mercalli intensity earthquakes. I love that they're using the Mercalli scale. I really do. Of grade 5, I just wish that they were grade 9, general panic or something like that, because that would be awesome. But grade 5 were reported during the filling of the reservoir. So they're starting to fill the reservoir, and they're experiencing these earthquakes. So something is slipping somewhere with friction. July 1962, SADE, that's the company who's building the dam. That's this Northern European energy conglomerate mega company, reported that a large landslide could cause a wave that would top the dam if the water level in the dam was within 20 to 25 meters of the top of the dam, which was designed. It was supposed to be within 10 meters of the top of the dam. So the company that's building the dam, now that the dam's almost done, it's going to be finished in a year, comes out and says, hey, just so you know, it's possible that if one of these landslides occurs when this is clear full, we could have a problem. Just wanted you to know. Thanks. Have a nice day. March 63, the dam is transferred to the Italian government. The basin is nearly full. Visible ground motion. Earthquakes and small landslides are reported by residents on a continuous basis. Continuous. That means all the time. So something is definitely wrong. September 15th, 1963, the entire mountainside slid 22 centimeters. So that's the main piece of information that they use to say that this starts off as one mass. It dropped 22 centimeters. The slippage plane was already identified. Water, they filled the reservoir. The sediment, the rocks on the side of the mountain are on a deeply stiffing bedding plane directly down into the reservoir. Water from the reservoir had begun hydrostatically wicking up into the dry rocks. It's like if you put an oil candle on a table and you light it. The oil is several inches below the top of the flame burning on that wick, but the oil, nonetheless, goes up the wick against the force of gravity. You can put a pair of blue jeans on and go play in the snow. Never kneel down, but after an hour, you're wet all the way to your knees. The water will hydrostatically move upward in that medium. So what was happening here is water was hydrostatically moving up gradient against the force of gravity, lubricating the slippage plane, and adding mass to the system. Those are the two main things that water does for us in a mass wasting event. September 15th, 1963, the entire mountainside, size 22 centimeters, collapsed, reported as unavoidable. The distance between here and October 9th is not very big. September 26th, 1963, this is the government entity that oversees the dam. They go in and they begin draining the impoundment. We need to get the impoundment down so that it is lower than 20 or so meters from the crest of the dam. Because if this landslide occurs, it'll generate a tsunami wave. And if the tsunami wave is, if we're too close to the top of the dam, it'll top the dam and wash downstream, and all these little towns are going to be in danger from that. Early October, 1 meter of motion measured in a physical day. So there's people out on the slide. All of the animals that lived on the mountain had left. They said you'd walk out on the mountain in early October, and it was like you were on another planet. There were no birds singing. There were no rabbits. There were no animals of any kind. They all knew this was not a good place to be. Everything that was alive had left except for us. And we were there trying to fix it. Now, lowering the level of the water in the lake was a good theory, but the water in the lake was actually applying a lateral force to the bottom of the landslide. And so by lowering the water level, we diminished the amount of lateral containment that the water could exert on the base of the... It's a catch-22. Sorry. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Yeah, we just broadcast that from BYU, and damn's in the Bible, so I can say it. It is.
If you're at Sunday school.
I do say it in Sunday school, too. I also talk about dinosaurs and evolution and stuff like that, so it's all good. So we saw this a minute ago, it's just a different version. Here's that little landslide that occurred the year before, where 800,000 cubic meters of material enter a little ways back from the dam, and here is the entire mass that was catastrophically released just almost instantaneously and rushed into the dam. That's what it looked like afterwards. So here's the dam. Dam's fine. I mean, we showed you where they put those footings in. That was solid limestone and dolomite. That wasn't going anywhere. But now we've got this. Yeah, and that's a decent amount. Let's see, where is it at? That's a decent amount of material. So the landslide itself was 240 million cubic meters. Thistle, in comparison, 15 to 20 million cubic meters. I mean, it's...
And you find out where the landslide material is. How thick
This is all landslide. This is the side of the mountain. All of this right here. There's bedrock. All of this right here needs to go back up there on the side of the mountain.
So that tall dam has been filled up here.
With all the way to the top. And today, even today, with settling, etc., it's only down to about here. Yeah, it's 100 feet or so. We'll show you a picture from the back here in a few. 50 million cubic meters of water come over the top of the dam. 50 million. I don't know how many meters of water are in Utah Lake, but I bet that's really close. So there's the crown of the landslide, top of Montauk. The dam right here in the foreground of the picture. And again, and this is modern picture from today, and you can still see the scar today. All of that needs to be pushed back up into place, clear up to here. And the dam today filled in almost entirely back behind. This is the part that just almost makes you cry. 65 meters of the dam right here is visible in this picture. The dam is 262 meters tall. We can see about 65 meters of it because of the topography of the canyon. The wall of water that came over the top of the dam on the 9th of October was 250 meters high and would have blocked out the sky in that picture. It would have been like the hand of God was reaching down. There was just nothing you could do. 250 million or 50 million cubic meters in a wall of water 250 meters high. The wall of water was the height of the dam. It was about an order of magnitude worse than either the construction company or the government company had anticipated it being. Even after the events that had occurred just in the few days prior to this happening, where the whole side of the mountain settled about a meter, the rate at which it entered the the reservoir, the mass that entered the reservoir, the evacuation of the impoundment, etc. All of this material that you're seeing back here, that's the landslide.
What do you think?
Vegetated.
The Geol movie did.
Well, it'd be like doing a jacuzzi or it'd be like doing a cannonball into a bathtub. In order to get the water to eject, because the dam is 11 meters thick at the top, and it's 80 meters thick at the bottom, so it's like a big concrete ramp. So in order to evacuate the impoundment and get the water to shoot over the top of the dam, 250 meters in the air above the crest of the dam. Yeah, it was moving. There's nothing that you could have done. There's nothing that they could have done. It was such a massive thing. There's no way, even with modern technology, once this had started, if they would have back in the 60 maybe said, hey, we're going to stop, blow the dam up, drain this. Well, the landslide probably still would have occurred one day, maybe incrementally. But when it hit the bottom of the valley, like Thistle, it wouldn't have encountered a massive reservoir. There wouldn't have been a mega tsunami. So loss of life wouldn't have been quite as catastrophic as what they realized. But it's a bad slope. The geology is going the wrong way. The slippage plane was already identified, and we came out here with some grease and lubed it all up and gave it a splash zone.
Yeah, there's a shockwave that ran up.
No, go ahead.
Just from the force, it's like taking a bag of concrete and dropping
Yeah,
it.
boom.
So there's a shockwave that went up the other side of the valley and blew buildings down.
Yeah, so the town of San Martino was almost entirely destroyed up the valley from the dam in the other direction. Loss of life was a lot less, but yeah, buildings were totally destroyed by this blast that occurred. It's on a slide coming up in a minute. The force of the water hitting the back of the dam was estimated at being double the strength of the nuclear device dropped on Hiroshima at the end of World War II. And that was 12,500 tons of TNT. So 25,000 tons of TNT hit the back of the dam on October 9th, 1963, and the dam held, which is just kind of a testament. There was a crater carved out down here at the bottom of the dam, 60 meters deep into the bedrock by the falling water. The top 2 meters of engineered concrete reinforced with steel was eroded off of the top of the dam during the mega tsunami that went over the top of it. So picture here, there's the dam, there's the nice reservoir, this is bad, and there it is afterwards. And this is still there to this day. It's heavily vegetated. You can actually walk around behind here on some little trails, etc. We'll show you pictures from the back. Yeah, it's right there in the front of the picture. It doesn't look very big in these pictures. It looks like this little teeny thing, but it's bigger than Glen Canyon. So Glen Canyon is a little wider, but this is taller by a Kimball Tower, basically. So it's really important when you look at that to imagine the scale of what you're seeing there. This is a 860-foot high concrete structure. Almost, we're closing in on a 1,000-foot high concrete structure here. This is Longarino, the town just below the dam, prior to and after. The gentleman, although be it a little overdramatic, with really good background music in the little video clip that we watched, he said, towns were basically erased from the map as if they had never existed. And they don't call these towns because it's Italy and they call them villages. But yeah, it's like it was erased. The only thing really in the heart of town that survived was the bell tower of the church. The entire rest of the church, as well as most of the other structures, was simply demolished, washed away into a scattered field of chunks of houses and debris and bodies, etc. Yeah, really. It would have almost been like being in a war zone. In fact, it would have been a lot like being in a war zone, but the enemy at this point in time was gravity. But now, we fast forward to modern day. Here's our Google Earth image, and we've got the dam still standing right there, white arrow pointing at the dam, for those of you who are geographically deficient. There's the landslide itself. All of this material from up there's the scar, which still exists. It's bare bedrock in most places, and it's going to take soil development runs on a scale of millimeters, and that's a pretty steep slope, which is really not a good contributing factor to developing a soil. So it's going to take a long time for that scar to heal, which is it's good in a couple of ways. It allows us to go and see it, and it serves as a really good reminder as to things that can happen and happen really fast and happen really, really badly. So all of this material here at the bottom should be up there on the side of the mountain, and there should be a big reservoir down in the bottom. So picture from down on the ground now. The road here in the foreground of the picture runs right along the leading edge of the slide. So it looks like there's a mountain or a hill in between us and the mountain, Montonk. There is, except this is the face of Montonk that just slid down to the bottom, and the dam is over here out of our field of view ever so slightly. This picture does a really good job of showing these dolomitic limestones tilted right down into the reservoir. It wasn't just the soil layer. If it was just the soil layer that detached and slid down the face of the mountain, the volume of material that entered the reservoir would not be 240 million cubic meters. It was the upper several layers of rock as well that slid down. There was lots of soil and trees and everything else, involved, but the bedrock was taken off as well and brought down to the bottom. And you can see that the mass of material that came to rest there behind the dam has been pretty heavily vegetated. Jeff?
Remind me again, what was the slippage plane? Was it shale?
There's an interbedded unit between some of these dolomitic limestones that's a shale unit. And that shale unit was absorbing water, which made it greasy and slippery and provided mass.
Kind of like the Manning Canyon.
Very similar. And if you've driven up Provo Canyon, especially during the construction of the highway to Heber City, and you saw all the little failures that would occur in that, yeah, except one thing that we have going for us is that we don't have the steep inclination that they have in most places, especially along the side of the reservoir. But yeah, if you had the same kind of a thing, if the Manning Canyon there below Cascade Springs was to give way, which it really can't because it's pretty flat. But if that was steeply inclined and it gave way and rushed down into Deer Creek, you could do a similar type of damage. You could wipe out Tucanos, and that would be tragic. Yeah. Oh, excellent. Okay, then never mind. The phrase up at the top, the Titanic of geology. This is, the Titanic. There's a lot of negative stigma associated with that ship. And, the ability of man to go out and conquer, etc. To this day, the Viant Dam disaster is categorized as the Titanic of geology. With all of the warning signs that were there in the geology, somebody should have seen something. Somebody should have said something. And people tried to again, but the Italian government kind of quashed that.
So did this landslide cause another dam for the river and backed it up?
Yes, and so now you've got the dam, and then you go back, there's the back. So now we're looking at the back of the dam, 2 times the force of the Hiroshima bomb. From this point, you go back several hundred meters, from here to, Dr. Keith's house, and there's the reservoir. So now you've got this concrete dam, and then you've got 240 million cubic meters of fill behind the dam, and then you have the reservoir. And they've drilled a tunnel through the landslide to tap that reservoir because they can't just have it fill and fill and fill and go over the top of the dam like a big waterfall, but that would be cool. And since it's a concrete dam, you could actually do that because then it would erode slowly and blah, blah, blah. But they drain water from the reservoir through that tunnel that's in the landslide and drop it through the turbines in the dam to generate electricity. So, yeah, it's basically a dam behind a dam. Yeah, where the Gravant Dam in Wyoming was just a big landslide, kind of like Thistle, but still there, I believe. Yeah. Okay, it is 1 minute till class is over. Questions? So we're going to get to go see this. There are memorials all over the place. Workers who died, families who died, surnames that were erased, and they are the people who live in these little villages below the dam are very somber about this. So I'm just going to tell you, if we're we're having a good time and everything's great and we're having lunch, but when we're walking around where the memorials and stuff are, it's like walking around pioneer cemeteries. They really feel very strongly about it. Scott.
got blamed?
Well, nobody got blamed because by this point in time, the government of Italy was in charge of the dam, and it was 1963. Now, there was a number of things they said, this went wrong, and this went wrong, and this went wrong, and this went wrong. What you're asking, nobody was held accountable. Yeah, so it's kind of like Johnstown, Pennsylvania, 1889. Again, nobody was held accountable, even though 2,600 people in the city of Johnstown were killed, partially because the guy who owned the reservoir, his last name was Carnegie.
I don't know much about dams, but do all of them, a lot of dams have that angle?
Yes. The base of the dam is thicker than the top of the dam. Because the dam doesn't hold back the water like this. The dam holds the weight of the water, which is not the entire reservoir. So the dam's back is sloped, and the pressure is vertical on the dam, not horizontal. It's a common misconception of how the physics work. So Glen Canyon Dam is not holding back water all the way to Bullfrog and height. That water is sitting there in depression because of gravity. Only the water right behind the dam is actually being held by the dam. Yeah, and the conical shape that we're seeing there, which again was the largest of its kind when it was built, is just, an arch is stronger than a flat surface. And so it's arched into those abutments that we saw carved out on the sides to give it more strength. And it must be strong because that's a lot of force. All right, the bell has rung.
Okay, one more thing.
Call.
We're actually good because it goes until 50 now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But that's okay. I'm sure these students don't mind. They wouldn't have said anything. But Bonnie needs to move the time of her presentation.
Colin, you had a question.
I was going to say, so how low would they have had to lower the water level?
To keep it from happening?
Or how much
So the relationship between the water going over the top and the depth of the water in the reservoir isn't linear. It's on a curve. And so, they didn't get to lower it very much because they'd only started lowering it a couple of days in advance. Imagine if we opened up the spillways at Glen Canyon full blast, how far down is the water going to be by Saturday? That's kind of the time frame they had. If they could have gotten the reservoir down to probably less than half, I bet it still would have topped the dam, but it would have been 20 or 30 meters, and that could have possibly even mostly been contained in the existing river channel versus 250 meters over the top of the dam. Yeah, 50 million cubic meters of water was simply not foreseeable, where a couple of million cubic meters of water could have been, the loss of life would have still happened, but it wouldn't have been as big as it was.
I heard the blast of the air did knock people over.
Yeah, right. Scott was talking about that. Yeah, upstream, the landslide happened so rapidly that the blast of the air from the landslide itself going upstream and the water coming over the dam and hitting the ground and making that 60-meter deep crater knocked people down just from the blast of air.
So if there was a giant landslide off of Bly Mountain or something like that, we might feel the blast of the air before we inundate it covered by the water.
Yeah, because the air is going to run, the compression wave through the air is going to happen a lot faster than the physical movement of the debris. Yeah. But it wouldn't matter. If you were close enough to it that the air blast knocked you down, that's one of the last things you tried to determine was why did I just fall down? Oh, yeah, it would have been tragic.
Anything else? Okay, come back on Thursday to hear the exciting story of Venice.
Venice has some cool things, but unfortunately it's nowhere near this exciting. Yeah.
Great.
Good times we had. Not at all. I'm going to give this back to Eric now. Thank you for listening.
What was that?